My absolute favorite time for any card game is reveal season, when a new expansion is coming and we get our first look at new cards. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First, ooh, shiny, right? You get new toys, that's always fun. You get to shake things up because usually by the time a new expansion is coming out, things can start to feel a little stale. But my other reasoning for enjoying this time in a card game's life cycle is because you get to look at things out of context and then speculate. And I think that in those instances, you kind of look at things more from a game design perspective and less from a power perspective. Now, that's not to say that there are not times when you see a card and it's revealed and you think like this is going to be bonkers, and then it turns out it is. Grand Plaza, for example, is one that was recently that way, in my opinion. Like, it was revealed, I was like, oh, that looks strong, and then it turns out, yeah, that was strong. But for the most part, you get to look at things in context of a game design view. And so today Riot revealed the first set of cards coming in their Shurima themed expansion. We're getting another region in Legends of Runeterra, and I wanted to go through the cards and talk about them. And because it is so early and because we don't have context, it's really hard to gauge, you know, whether these are going to be good or not until we see much more of the expansion. But these cards had some really cool concepts from a game design perspective that I wanted to highlight, and so we're gonna go through them. And right out of the gate, we've got Destined Poro. This completes our Poro cycle. When I say completes, we're supposed to get even more regions, I believe, in the future. So I don't mean like we're done, but I just mean continues, I guess is the better word. And that is, we get a 1-drop Poro. This one, however, says round start, if you've leveled a champion, transform me into Exalted Poro. And you can see the Exalted Poro over here, which is now a 1-cost 2/2, and I have 3 random keywords, so it really powers it up. And I gotta say, I love the art on these. The Poro art is always great anyway, but I love the art on these. Now, this is like a peek into one of the themes you're gonna see throughout, which is that leveling champions matters. Now, before we go any further, I love this because leveling champions has kind of always mattered in the history of Legends of Runeterra, but it usually matters in the context of the champion. It's very rare that you level your champion and suddenly like big chunks of your deck ramp up in power. You might have cards like Ezreal, for example, where, you know, the first iteration of Ezreal turned every burst spell into direct damage and you could kind of combo out. But for the most part, it didn't make the card better. The cards just had that edit benefit because of Ezreal existing on the table. So this mechanic here, this idea that, you know, you level a champion and then your stuff gets stronger, is interesting from a design standpoint. And I think it's important because there have been plenty of times in the history of Legends of Runeterra where leveling the champion didn't matter. Like, sometimes you just play them for raw strength. Sometimes you play them because they're a good 1-drop or a good 2-drop. Elise is actually a pretty good example. Outside of dedicated spider decks, she's often just played as a good 2-drop, and if you level her up, it's okay, right? It's a nice to have, but it's not the point. By making these cards that benefit from your champions leveling up, you now might consider going a bit more all in on your strategy for leveling a champion, or I'll take it a step further, you might be more inclined to pick champions that are easier to level up if that's part of your game plan. So I just like that this is a direction that they were choosing to explore from a design standpoint. Now, it's entirely possible it does not impact your choices. It might not be that deep, but one can hope, right? And again, they're at least laying the foundation for those kinds of decisions potentially mattering in the future. Now, they did also reveal a new keyword. This is countdown. So we're gonna first take a look at the actual keyword thing. I got it up here. So it says countdown. On round start, I count down 1. Shocker, I know. At 0, destroy me and activate the countdown effect. And so the card that they showcased this with is this Buried Sun Disc. Now, this is interesting because it also reminds me of, I believe they're called quests in Hearthstone. This is a 1-cost landmark. And it says at the start of the game, draw 1 of me if all of your cards are Shuriman. So if you go all in mono region, you just auto start with this in your hand round 1, and that's why I think of the quest thing from Hearthstone. Now, countdown 25, and then the effect is restore the sun disk. We'll see that in a moment, but it basically also says when an ascendant ally levels up, advance me 10 rounds. Now, there's something really interesting going on here. It says ascendant ally, not an ascendant champion, not a Shuriman champion, an ascendant ally. So I don't know if ally is a term that they are choosing specifically or not. We don't know. So I'll go back here. We legitimately don't know if there's any more to this, but I do find it very interesting that they are choosing the word ally as opposed to champion, because you're going to see on some other cards later, they very specifically reference champion when they mean a champion. And so this saying ally leads me to believe that there are going to be cards in this expansion that level up that are not champions. And that is a really neat game design thing. I think that's a great way to explore things. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's finish talking about the disc, right? So restored sun disk, basically when you trigger the buried sun disk, when you get your countdown all the way down, it says immediately draw one of all your ascendants. Now, we don't know if ascendant is a specific kind of unit yet. Like, we don't know if it's going to be something tagged like Poro, because we haven't seen any, but draw one of all of them. And then for the rest of the game, your level 2 ascendants are level 3. What? So right out of the gate here, we've never had a level 3 anything before. What does that mean? We have no idea. They don't show it to us, but it has me excited. Makes me start questioning, like, is there a level 4? Is there more than that? Like, for example, hear me out, right? We know Nasus is coming. We know Renekton is coming. It would be kind of cool if, you know, maybe some of these Shuriman champions can go up to level 3, but maybe Nasus can go up indefinitely, and that's how they kind of capture his scaling. Like, wouldn't it be kind of neat if his level up is just kind of a gimmick where it just goes on never ending, but then maybe he has a spell or an ability that gets stronger based on the number of levels he is? You could kind of capture his League of Legends scaling in that regard. Now, it's also possible they just cap at 3, because this says they are level 3 definitively. It makes it seem like that's the pure top end. But the fact that there is a level 3 period is very intriguing, because that's never happened before. Now, this is kind of hallmark game design in that they present you with something, they present you with a norm, and then they break it. I can kind of sum up most game design for card games with this pattern. Now, I understand that what I'm about to say is incredibly broad strokes, right? I am really purposefully dumbing this down, and I understand that. So if you're an actual game designer, I hear you. This is not meant to belittle you, but the core of any good card game is, here are rules, right? These are the rules that the game operates by, and then each card finds a way to break those rules. Whether that's a keyword that breaks the rules, elusive's a great example. Normally, units can attack and they get blocked. Elusive breaks that rule. You know, in this case, normally cards go to level 2. Restored Sun Disk is sending them to level 3, and so on and so forth. You usually just have, like, these are the rules, and this is something that lets you break the rules in an interesting way. But I love this. I love that, you know, we've been playing the game for a year now, maybe longer, depending on the player, and we're going to be entering into uncharted territory. So I'm excited. Let's go a step further, playing up on the sun disk thing here. So another card revealed, Esteemed Hierophant, 3 cost 3/4, solid stats. When I'm summoned, advanced, you're buried sun disk 2 rounds. So it's got a natural countdown of 1, and when you level an ascended ally, you advance at 10, and this advances at 2. Now, there is a bit of a clock here, right? Because this is still a landmark. So if you are a mono Shurima deck, yes, you start with this in hand, you play it on turn 1, but it's still a landmark that could get blown up, right? So this countdown thing isn't just about advancing your game plan to, you know, get to your win condition, but you're also kind of racing your opponent, drawing a removal as well. So that's something that's very relevant. That's also why this specifically says draw one of me, because I could very easily see any sort of buried sun disc deck still running 3 copies because of backup measures if it is blown up. Might not end up being the case. It might be part of like a mini package in a different archetype, or you might go all in. We haven't seen enough to know, but again, just interesting applications. And then we've already seen the Untitled Poro. So moving on here, we have Devoted Council. This is a 3-cost 1/6 on round start. If you've leveled a champion, heal your champions and Nexus too. So this is more of that champion leveling matters theme. I like that it heals your champions and your Nexus. The 1/6 stat line is interesting because that's a big back end, and the fact that this heals as well almost makes me wonder if we're going to see some new archetypes with Soraka. So Soraka has pretty much been relegated to being paired with Tahm Kench, at least that's the most popular pairing by a long shot, and you play Star Springs and you go that route. And you do that because Bilgewater has a bunch of self-harm stuff, so it makes healing them easy. You can kind of control the board with Boxtopus. Tahm Kench, again, he likes to eat things. You heal him up, he eats them again. But this Devoted Council here, good solid stat line, has its own healing. It's interesting. But again, more support for that champion leveling matters, so I like it. Next up, we have Golden Ambassador. So if you are running this mono Shurima deck that's trying to get the Buried Sun Disc going, Golden Ambassador is probably going to be included, and I think this is a very strong allegiance trigger. So this is a 4-cost 3/2, but the allegiance is draw a champion and grant it +2/+2. Now, there is a celestial card that exists. It's a burst spell that also costs 4, and you draw a champion, grant it +2/+2, and then you reduce its cost by 1. But you also have to play a card to invoke that celestial card just to get to that level of power. Here, through deck building, you can give yourself a pretty good chance of still drawing a champion, giving it +2/+2. Yes, you don't get the -1 cost, but holy cow, you also get a 3/2 body on top of it. So I think personally this is a very powerful effect in a vacuum, and I'm also very interested in seeing what kind of Shurima champions exist and whether or not the granting them the +2/+2 is going to be relevant, because there are some champions where, you know, if they're small, maybe, you know, you think of like a Teemo or a Zoe, right? Even giving one of those +2/+2 takes them out of Mystic Shot range, right? That is a very significant stat boost. So I am a fan of this card, and I want to see what Shurima champions exist, so that if you're playing a heavy Shurima list, which you should be if you're running this Allegiance card, you know, what is the benefit? What is the payoff there? Because this feels really powerful. All right, next up we have a Voice of the Risen. This is a 4-cost 3/4, so stats are ho-hum, but if you've leveled a champion, there's that theme again, allies have +2/+0. So it's a 3/4 that becomes a 5/4 if you've leveled a champion and buffs your entire board. So, you know, back in line with this Golden Ambassador thing, buffing potentially cheap champions, if you go with some sort of like swarm mechanic or swarm deck, and you've got Voice of the Risen here, and you're trying to, you know, get that quick level up, but then also have a wide board, this is a pretty powerful card. We've already seen something like, you know, the arena guy who buffs your entire board when he attacks. That 2-cost 2/2 has been very powerful in go wide decks, very powerful in aggressive lists. So giving your entire board a +2/+0 feels pretty good. I could see this being similar to like a crowd favorite. So crowd favorite is one of those cards that, you know, your board goes wide and then you get this big meaty beat stick with Overwhelm to go over the top. And this is not singularly a big unit, but this definitely makes your board scary. So, you know, I want to see some Sandy Spiders. I want to see aggro come back. It's been a bit since like true, like real go fast aggro has existed, and I want to see if we get those tools again. But this is an interesting card to me. I want to keep my eye out for this. Now, the last card is also interesting from, again, that game design standpoint. This is a 7-cost slow spell. It's called Ascended's Rise, and it says level up all level 1 Ascended allies. Now, again, this is where I pause and I say it says allies, which leads me to believe that, once again, it's not saying champions. So I think that we're going to see other cards that can level up. And I'm wondering if they might even make some things go backwards. We might see some backwards compatibility. So I immediately think of a card like Senna. Senna is a champion in League of Legends. Senna's card in Legends of Runeterra, not currently a champion, interacts with another champion, but she has like this mini level up mechanic to her. And if they end up introducing non-champions leveling, and it looks like they might be going that route, I could see her kind of backwards adjusted, backwards fixed, codified, errated. There's a number of terms in card games that have been used, but basically I could see them kind of rework her to fit this mold. So interesting that it says allies. Interesting that for 7 mana you can level up what is likely champions. Now, it does say specifically Ascended. I think this card would be bonkers good without seeing anything else if it just straight up said level up champions or level up your allies, because being able to ensure that when I drop Aurelian's Soul, for example, he's already leveled, or when I drop, even like an Ezreal, like imagine not having to target everything, but you just get leveled up Ezreal anyway, or there's a number of champions where you have that kind of payoff, but this says specifically Ascended allies. Now, I'm going to assume that at least some of the Shurima champions will have whatever this Ascended tag is. I expect it to be a tag like Poro, Elnuck, etc. But nonetheless, in a purely speculative way, I feel like this has the potential to be really powerful, because if we're talking about champions and the introduction of other cards that can level up, leveling them all up without meeting like any of the criteria, yeah, you take a turn off, right? It's 7, but I think about a card like Cosmic Inspiration, right? You're playing your Invoke list, you get Cosmic Inspiration. It's a 7-cost slow spell, but it's worth it because the payoff is huge. Now, if you build a deck, and again, we don't know what the Ascended package is going to look like, but if you build a deck and you get a similar level of payoff to Cosmic Inspiration in the form of Ascended's Rise, I could definitely see this seeing play, despite being a 7-cost slow spell that, we don't know what it does yet. So there's a lot of inference here. I love that they teased these cards first, because I look at most of these and I say, like, I want to see the rest. Like, if you were picking a group of cards that basically tells me, I know next to nothing about an upcoming expansion and I need to know more, I want to know more, this was a great set of cards to do it. So I'm excited, and that's it for this video. If you made it this far, in the comments, maybe tell me what you're looking forward to the most, whether it's specific champions from Shurima, an archetype to get supported. Like I said, I want to see aggro come back. Whatever it is, just let me know, and thanks for watching.